Welcome to another episode of A Question of Meaning with Arthur and Katie. And we're doing our second show here without our instruments, so it still kind of feels kind of weird. But thanks for tuning in.
Everything feels weird.
Well, yes, everything does feel weird.
Planet Hell run. What do you expect? Happiness? That's for young people. Or when you're drunk. When you're drunk, you're happy. When you're in anything like your right mind, you're in despair.
Oh,
or if you're enlightened, you're happy also. If you're the only time you're happy is if you're a tail-wagging idiot, or if you're enlightened. That's my opinion.
That's pretty bleak, Arthur.
You're goddamn right.
Yeah.
Can I say goddamn before 11 o'clock?
As I mentioned last week, the FCC has been deregulated, so there are new rules here.
Until Clarence Kingfish Thomas and the Scalia et al. Ad nauseum overturn that.
Well, despair sounds like an interesting topic for a show.
Oh, let's not do that. What did you talk about doing?
Well,
I'm getting tired of this whole show, really.
Yeah.
If we don't get any more feedback, I'm just going to pack it in.
I think you said that before.
I did.
We have kind of been going through some...
We committed to 6 months, and we got a couple of months left, so I guess we'll stick it out. But frankly, I'm getting bored talking to myself. See, I know this stuff.
Well, and actually, we're considering getting out in the world and interacting with people.
As soon as it cools off.
Kind of changing the format of the show instead of it just being Arthur and I sitting here talking to each other.
Fall weather.
That perhaps, that's what we could reinvigorate the show by interaction. So, well, we'll see. So what we had, we just decided to do this show, and what I had mentioned, we didn't really have a topic in mind per se, but I had mentioned Arthur has this interesting theory that he calls his special solution, which I fought against for a long time. I thought it was horrific and a nightmare scenario and completely unrealistic. But as time has gone on and we've talked about it and argued about it more and more, I've come to accept it in a number of ways. And one of the reasons I've come to accept it is because I think we may not have any other choice. And what what this is about is the solution, what the problem that this is a solution to is the problem of human-caused problems, such as global warming, and that they are going to grow in complexity and danger to the human survival to such an extent that we're not going to have any choice but to do something really drastic. So is that what you'd like to talk about, Arthur?
Why don't you describe it? I think that could be interesting since you're persuaded.
Huh. Okay.
At long last. I found it deeply offensive too when I first thought of it. But just a little background quickly. I read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley when I was 16. And I thought it was appalling, the totally collectivist society that actually programmed you in the bottle, and that you weren't born, you didn't have a biological mother. You were born in a hatchery, a mechanized assembly line that lasted 9 months and grew you. And if you were meant for menial labor, they simply stunted your intelligence right in the bottle before you were decanted and shipped off to the tropics or wherever. You were immunized for tropical diseases if you were going to the tropics. It was a complete, brilliantly efficient collectivist system. There was no hope of any individual arising. No Neo would arise from this. It was complete and utter, what I considered tyranny. And I was appalled at the age of 16, and now, maybe this is the meaning of if you're not a conservative by the time, because what Katie's going to describe is quite conservative.
Interesting.
If you will, if conservatism is crowd management with knobs on, and that's
okay, we'll develop that as we go.
Anyway, so I've come around, much to my amazement, being a champion of an individual. That means I've done what the goddamn hell I please my entire life. Broken every rule I could get away with. And I intend to die breaking the rules. You'll never take me alive, in short. In any case, what I've come around to is thinking that Brave New World is probably the only way, something like it is the only way the human race is going to survive. And with that,
Well, I mean, I just want to say that's interesting because that you say that you've always been terrified since you were a teenager of the collectivist system, and I've actually was the reverse. I haven't been afraid of collectivism. I've been a communist since I was a teenager, and I've thought collectivist systems would actually be a much preferable system of governance than our individualist system of capitalism in this country.
That is interesting.
So that then that's interesting that you come up with this collectivist solution, and I've been fighting against it.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
Jack Spratt could eat an ambulance. So.
That's right. That's right. I guess the point is Arthur was calling us the Lockhorns yesterday. We were out filming. So maybe that's it. When you get to a certain stage in relationship, no matter what your partner advocates, you automatically take the opposing point of view.
Oh, look here. The sun is going down. No, it isn't. The Earth is rotating on its axis away from the freaking sun, you idiot.
Well, so all right, I'll tell my take, and it may not be quite the way Arthur would put it, but you can tell me, you can correct me.
I hope it's
I'm
different.
wrong. So
hope we haven't turned into that much of a homogenized milkshake.
Well, Arthur, as he's gotten older, has both of us are very liberal in perspective and have had a lot of hope that some of the problems
I just like
we
the word
see.
liberal.
There's some of the problems. Hey, this is my take.
Right.
If you wanted to talk, you could tell your version. So, we've had a lot of hope that things were going to work out. And one of the things that happens as you get older is you start losing that hope. As I said, the show about despair, you start thinking, man, it is not going to work out. We are not going to, this country is going to continue in its conservative ways. And it's going to continue making some of the same stupid errors of judgment over and over and over again. For instance, the BP oil spill, what an awesome opportunity to start a Manhattan Project to get us to a carbon-free energy future. I mean, it was like handed to the Obama administration on a silver platter. Did they take that advantage of that? No. And so this is the sort of things you start despairing as you get older. And so Arthur also was seeing, not only was he losing hope that there was going to be these solutions were going to come up out of the democratic system, but that at the same time, the problems that we are facing are increasing in complexity and severity. 50 years ago, maybe we couldn't solve problems, but there was only so much damage we were doing to the planet. But as we've, our chainsaws and our Caterpillar tractors have covered the earth, and we can cut down the last of the rainforest easily, and we seem to be doing that. Then things like environmental collapse, global warming, which could bring about the end of the human race. Maybe not the end of human race, but the end of human civilization as we know it. To me, that is very, very conceivable. That global warming would bring about agricultural collapse and the rising sea levels and changes in climate such that we could not, we would not end, humans would not end, but we would not be able to maintain our civilization.
I have to jump in here. You always hedge your bets. I mean, you don't hedge your bets. It's like you seem constitutionally incapable of getting your mind around the possibility.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but there's a goddamned possibility the human race is going to go bye-bye. Doomsday clock. Combination of a nuclear war, accidental or intentional.
Okay, well,
coupled with environmental collapse.
Right,
it could spell the end of humankind by its own hand, not an asteroid coming in and blowing us to bits. I just want to say that.
All right.
Let's at least entertain. Let's just say this. In the entire history of humankind, this is the first time that we have faced the possibility of self-extinction. Maybe it's not guaranteed. I don't think it is guaranteed. I think anything is guaranteed. But the possibility exists. That's what I'm asking.
All right. And
That's real important.
And I was, saying I think even more people could envision a collapse of our civilization than I know. I'm just saying that we could talk about different levels of catastrophe here. To me, the collapse of human civilization would be pretty drastic. Our lives, as we know it, would be over. And certainly
you start working on the next generation.
Nuclear weapons. People have kind of forgotten about nuclear weapons in the last 25 years, as if they've just ceased to be an issue. The Cold War is over. We can forget about them, and thankfully, there's a film that's really that's coming out, the documentary that hopefully will raise people's consciousness that nuclear weapons still are a very clear and present danger to the human race's survival.
Countdown to Zero, it's called. Sure, it'll be seen by dozens of hippies at the fine arts. It'll make a big difference. Go out and drink extra beer that night.
Okay, so Arthur tells this analogy, which I love, which is imagine that the countries of the world are that one person represents each country in the world, and we're in this lifeboat. Okay, so there's 186 or 188 people in this lifeboat, and each sovereign nation person has the right to do whatever they want to in their seat. And they can if they want, take the ice pick that's under their seat and start jabbing into the wall of the rubber lifeboat, because that's their sovereign right. They can do whatever they want. But this lifeboat, this earth, will bring down all of us when we allow that one person to continue jabbing our joint collective lifeboat. And like I said, 50 years ago, the earth was still big enough. The consequences of our actions were still isolated enough that maybe our actions couldn't bring down the lifeboat. But now that's changed. That's all changed. The human race has grown in numbers and grown in power, that our actions can bring about those kind of consequences where we end as a species. So, that's pretty dire. And it seems pretty conclusive to me. Like I said, I look at global warming and what scientists say, and if it's not the end of the human race, it's the end of life as we know it. So
the vax on cigarette smoking aren't all in yet.
So what do you do?
Those are the people, hey, morons, global warming deniers. Morons, your bus is leaving.
Just recently, a week or two ago, I read about...
Who do you think's feeding you that it's all a myth? The modern equivalent of Philip Morris.
So a couple of weeks ago, we read an article about global warming, and it was some scientists, and it was like, okay, it's conclusive, it's happening. These consequences, are dire, and so what's the solution? And one of the scientists said, well, since the problems are global, the only solution is global government. But then everyone just threw up their hands and said, well, that's impossible.
That ain't gonna happen.
So there is no solution. So that's the situation we find ourselves in, folks, is that we've grown to the point where we're creating problems on a global scale, but we seem incapable of governing ourselves on a global scale. The UN, as everybody thinks, is basically a joke. So what do we do? What do we do at this point? And this is where Arthur's special solution comes in.
I wanted to say final solution without being copyrighted.
So I've been talking for 10 minutes here, which maybe some people would say is a change.
Yeah.
Katie doesn't usually go uninterrupted for this line.
Talking. I'm bored with it. I'm tired of hearing myself talk.
Well, did I do pretty good so far,
well.
except for the part about not being
just include the possibility of the extinction of the human race, the most advanced 4,000 million years of planet evolution, the cutting edge, the only species that has real analytical thought and the ability, we think, Game of God, Recovering Your True Identity, our first book, gameofgod.com, if you want to look it up. The only ones who have the ability to take the next step in evolution. First step in evolution, the creation of the universe. Second step in evolution, the dawn of life. Third step in evolution, major step, the dawn of analytical thought, which is what the parable, the Aesop's fable called the Garden of Eden, really means, children. It's not literal. It means the moment in which they saw that they were naked and it was naughty and they covered themselves up. And we departed from the entire wild animal realm and started on the journey to the next stage in evolution, which we believe is the shedding of what we call subjective ego domination, an inevitable phase of craziness that happens to any gorilla that starts thinking. A lot of mistakes will be made, but the shedding of the subjective ego and the entry into the epoch of objective mind. Mr. Spock, leave Captain Kirk behind. That's what we're up for. If we don't blow ourselves up, if we don't extinct ourselves, if we don't crap our nest to the point that we choke on the fumes, all of us.
Okay.
So before you go on,
okay.
Here's where I usually pause. Are you going to do the proviso?
No.
Good, because I always do this. Because this is anathema to me, what you're about to hear. I've always found this deeply offensive. Found it incredible that I could ever subscribe to such an idea, or such a plan, such a hope. But you've got to either buy this premise, or you might as well tune to American Idol or America's Got Talent. That's my latest favorite. Oh, God. Like I said, I really prefer True TV. It's much more honest. It's just a certified carnival sideshow, you know.
Okay,
Cops,
so you're
repo.
Okay, we know we know your preferences. So let's get to your proviso.
So the proviso is to buy what you're going to hear, to give it serious thought. You have to agree to this premise: the survival of the human race, the survival of humankind, is more important than anything. It's more important than freedom. It's more important than private property. It's more important than religious freedom. It's more important than any liberty you can think of. Any national sovereignty, any border, any rag with stitching on it called a goddamn flag.
So I think you're saying that because I think this is one of the places where I would get stopped, is when you first hit this proviso. And I see it, wait a second, but because of the phrasing of it. And I see other people being confused by it too. And when you say the survival of the human race is more important than anything, well, then that includes what? More important than the survival of butterflies?
Hell yes.
Okay.
You know what? We went filming yesterday. You know what I saw? They had these horse-drawn buggies going up this road, and there was just an incredible amount of horse crap on the road. Horse crap. Every single mound was covered with butterflies. They're like, the butterflies, the delicate butterflies, all they do is fly around and be beautiful. No, they don't. They eat crap, or they eat something off crap. It really blew my mind. So hell yeah!
There's not a biologist. I mean, you're eating pre-digested food.
There's not a swallow that falls from the sky, but that God knows that it falls, and you're more important than many swallows. That's what,
okay, but from an environment.
You were designed to do something that a butterfly can't do. It's called take the next major step in evolution. You've already taken one.
Yes.
The butterfly's just so. That's what the butterfly's doing. You don't see me doing that. I've done a lot of things. Well, I don't know. Let's not get there.
Let's not, because we can talk on different levels here.
Yeah, we can talk on different levels.
So, but the point I'm saying is that an environmentalist would hear that comment and hear you say, yes, it's more important than a butterfly, and say, well, that's the problem with thousands of years of human history, is that we have considered ourselves more important than the butterfly.
God, what a lame argument. I mean, not you, but, I've heard it. Yeah.
So they hear you saying we should continue the same thinking that has created huge human problems through history and just give it a new justification for it.
Would you like to hear my retort to that?
So because when you said, you just gave your example of the things that we should not have as more important than human survival, you said things like freedom, and you said things like private property, which are abstract principles that have emerged from the human mind.
Yep.
So I understand that better that way, that these things are less important than human survival.
Excuse me.
We'll make sure that audio.
We usually don't have this.
40 minutes.
We usually don't tape our show after lunch. I get cranky about nap time.
Okay. So let's just go on from there, okay? So because
all right, okay, you go on from there. But I'm saying,
we can maybe come back to this.
Yeah.
So
look how we're doing. I'm not. It doesn't proceed. I've got to address this, since you brought it up. It doesn't proceed from the same arrogance that says we are lords and masters of the earth. Listen, the planet is going to be here after our asses. Our brilliant, elevated, superior asses are rotten corpses, radioactive corpses in a puddle of stratified diarrhea.
The butterflies will be perching on the remains of our of our buildings that are decomposing into the jungles.
Even a butterfly probably wouldn't. Yeah, right, exactly, would need that. So no, what I'm saying is that for us to, because how are the butterflies doing right now? You know,
Well, I
how
saw a
many
lot of them
species
smashed under the
Yeah.
tires of
But
cars
if you looked
yesterday.
at our tires, I've never seen so many butterflies. But you know, it's probably that horse-drawn buggy course. That's what really, you know, that's why they were so bunched over there, as it were.
Okay.
No. So what I'm saying is that I think you know what I'm saying. There's the human arrogance that thinks we're superior in an egotistical sense, instead of realizing that what makes us different and unique, not superior. I don't think I said superior. More important in a very specific way is you want the lion to lie down with the lamb. You want to see that happen? You want to see the birds come up and perch on your shoulders and not take a crap on you? Because they really trust you and you got a relationship with the world like the Indians, like the Native Americans dreamed of having but never did. They had a balance with the world, but not like what I'm talking about. That takes something called enlightenment. And you know how that happens? You get to have a creature evolve that's capable of shedding what we call the primary survival identity. In the human case, it's the ego. It's the Arthur. That's who I think I am, is this meanness here. And if I can drop that, I'll discover, which the enlightened saints have done for thousands of years, the handful of them, is an underlying consciousness that is greatly superior to this putrid little Arthur act that I've been working and milking for.
Okay.
You know, and that's what we've got that's different. That's what nature evolved us to do. We were evolved with this expendable primary survival identity, and when the crunch got heavy enough and it got painful enough, we would ideally drop it. And I think that's what we're in now, is crunch time. The incentive is here for us to transcend survival, fight, flight, survival. That is what this ego is based on. So that's all I'm saying. It's not an act of arrogance. It's just a matter of, if we don't do it, well, a few 100,000 more years of evolution, self-awareness, analytical thought will probably manifest in another creature, maybe in the oceans. And the whole process of 100 or 200,000 more years until you grow up from worshiping a stone idol to driving on the moon, and all that implies you have to play the game again. You know, all that time.
Yeah.
So,
okay, because, you know, I guess you could say in here, insert in here from my perspective, that one of humanity's chief philosophical errors is the belief that we are separate from nature, that somehow we're not part of the whole natural system.
Right.
And I look at the extinctions that are happening now as humanity is going through this phase as equal, analogous to the comet hitting the Earth. We are a natural force, exactly as that comet was a natural force. We're not evil. We're not bad for doing these things. This is part of the evolution of consciousness, is making these kind of errors, not seeing the interconnectedness of all things.
Exactly.
And how we're, and we have to go through this process.
I see it like the first ape in 2001 that was futzing around with the bone, and all of a sudden, dun, 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 dun. The first invention, the first analytical thought.
Right.
That, at that moment, the earth said, you are born, humankind. Now, feed off my body. I'm going to take a lot of abuse from you. You're going to presume to be the masters of me. But in time, I'm going to give you the time and the ability to grow and learn and ultimately awaken. And if you don't, I'm going to destroy you. But you've got lots of time to do it, so go for it. Have a good time. Being a caveman, being a cave woman, cave. Well,
okay.
Sure.
So let's recap. Where we're at right now is we're talking about this theory Arthur has called the special solution, which is in response to the problem, which is grave human problems of global warming that have risen to be on the global scale. Nuclear weapons, the real threat to the human survival. And we've just gone through the proviso, which is that you need to accept that the survival of the human race is more important than some of these things that we hold so dear
More
to our
important than
hearts.
anything.
Okay.
More important than butterflies. More important than porpoises. More important than whales.
Okay, and more important than traditions,
Yeah.
cultural traditions. And
Couldn't
okay,
care less what your great-grandfather did.
Now, since we've almost spent 25 minutes setting the stage, maybe we're ready for the actual solution itself. And I'm not sure I'll get this right, because this is the part where I would always, I could buy all this up to about now, but then when my mind would start shutting down when Arthur would talk about this. And what he talked about basically was a global tyranny, a global. Well, that's how it always sounded to me.
I'm not sure you need to run this.
Yes, that's why I suggested
Yeah,
that
because
you
it's
go from here.
not necessarily a tyranny at all.
Well, that's
It's
where
an
we changed our thinking, and that's what I was going to.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
You just go from here.
Okay. The G20, or the handful of powers that have complete control over everything else. They are basically the powers that be. Facing imminent human extinction, or the real threat of it, realize pragmatically that we are still playing Tower of Babel on this planet. We can't understand each other, literally. All these languages, all these stupid freaking customs, where it's covering your woman in a rag, or clitoral, circumcision or worse. Third world overbreeding. The United States, the supposed big hope of humankind, using what percentage of the world's resources?
25% for 5% of the world's population.
5% of the population.
But that I always love this, because that's a really nice thing to say. But then I've also heard that 25% or so of the world's production happens in this country. So if we're producing 25%,
the orders are placed here. I don't know how much of the production.
Anyway, it'd be interesting to, instead of the consumption, more the production, and match the energy used to the production. But
the point is, we're in deep doo-doo.
Okay,
and
we'll agree with that.
The leaders of the world finally get it, as opposed to our illustrious paid-for whores in Washington, D.C., who do what they're paid to do. They're not voting in terms of human self-interest, the maximum good for the maximum number of people. They're doing it for fat pigs who go up there with briefcases full of money and buy their agenda.
Yeah, because your examples of the things that are holding this world back, or the Islamic covering the woman. What about
that's part of
Wall
it.
Street?
Listen, baby, I've lived in Afghanistan for a few months. You can't even conceive of corruption at that level. Oh yeah, you've been to the Soviet Union.
Yeah, but I know. I'm just saying that what
primitive
anyway,
nonsense. It's had its time. Frontier days are over. Women are the same as men. They just have different genitalia. They're exactly the same in every way that counts. And it's time to stop treating your woman like a piece of property, like your donkey. That's what I have to say to my Muhammad friends. Virtue. Bite me.
Okay. Arthur. All right.
I'm serious. I'm just saying this kind
of
nonsense is what is moving us. It's all these little things. Mm-hmm. These little divisive social, this is the way we've been doing things for 1,000 years, so we're going to keep doing them. No, you're not. You're going to get your scrawny ass drug into the 21st century by a world government. Ooh, booga, booga, booga. The mark of the beast. I can hear the fundamentalist freaking out now. You're damn right. Again, humankind, I don't care if we're put in the equivalent of a world concentration camp for 500 years and taught to behave, taught to get along with each other, taught to tolerate each other. Why we're going to tolerate each other? Because it's not going to be any difference. Because traditions are going to be smashed and ground under and used for fertilizer. I don't care what your great-grandmother did. I don't care if who fought in the damn Battle of Hastings or the at Waterloo or at Concord. Who cares? We're in trouble. And we got a problem, and we need to fix it. And the way to fix it is we got to become one people. The Tower of Babel is over. And the world government is going to basically fragment society, eliminate traditions, eliminate religion.
I think using the word fragment is kind of a bad way to put it, because
fragment
is the way we are now.
Yeah, right. unify society's thinking.
Right, to
But
actually
it's
end
going to
divisions.
pulverize,
Right.
this group versus this group. Nobody gets along. I mean, even football. I mean, look at us against them. My team against your team.
So Arthur, one way he puts it is it's like the whole human race is going to be put in a concentration camp for 500 years.
Worst case scenario.
We'll all come out the same color, speaking the same language, and perceiving ourselves as humans, not as Americans and French and
Russian.
Afghanis.
Oh my God, we're going to be the same as the French.
That's right.
Ooh.
There is no more divisions of countries. There is just humans. And
What an outrageous,
the United
horrible
States
idea.
might be seen as just a province of the global order, that in those local distinctions disappear more and more. Right. And people, so that's one of the things that people just go crazy about was, what about, my cultural traditions?
What about my right to destroy a New Jersey-sized section of Brazilian rainforest, a last oxygen supply, every year? It may be more than that. What about my right to do that? What about we have hydrogen bombs? Israel has. I'm sure they have hydrogen bombs. Their information is the best. We got ours. What's wrong with Iran having theirs? Because they have their equivalent of George W. Bush, Ahmadinejad, whatever his name is. Ahmadinejad, I think, something like that. I can't remember what it is.
Ahmadinejad.
Yeah, that
something
guy.
like that.
That's simply the Muslim version of George W. Bush, a tail-wagging idiot who should never get anywhere near a position of power greater than baseball commissioner, which is what Bush should have been made.
Well, yeah, if he'd become baseball
he'd have been
commissioner, we
happy.
might have been saved from his presidency. It's a sad tale.
By the way, how dare you blame what's going on in this economy on Obama, even though he's a weak-kneed putz.
So Arthur,
what
it's
you get
interesting.
for having a tail-wagging idiot in the White House for 8 years. This is what your economy looks like. Nimrods.
Some of your examples, because I would say, because where you started was your belief in the or not belief, but the revering of the individual. And in this country, we totally revere the individual. That's the cowboy.
Isn't that interesting?
The cowboy is the icon of
rides
America.
into town alone, rides out of town alone, but yet how are we raised? What are you really teaching us? Think for yourself. I don't care if everybody else does it. There'll be one less, and that's you. But they teach us to conform.
Okay, well, that's not what I'm talking about. So in this country, out of our revering for the individual, then we set up our entire society based on providing for yourself and your individual family. Individual retirement accounts. If Bush had had his way, Social Security would have been completely privatized. We provide for our own health care. We, all have our own stuff. I mean, like I'm washing laundry today. How many times a week do we use that washer and dryer? 3-4 times a week? And yet there's these really...
Once for me, I do my own, and you do your own, maybe twice a week.
And then there's like maybe household laundry. Okay,
Right,
3 times a week. So there's this, washer and dryer sitting there in use 3 hours a week. But we have to have our own, because the idea of going down to a laundromat and using some that we share with other people, oh my God, put my precious clothes in with somebody.
Yeah, you got that about the
else's.
lawnmower. Everybody's out with their own lawnmower spewing pollutants.
Right. And the untold costs of manufacturing all those devices and having to replace them. Same with our car. We all must have our own personal transportation vehicle, and that's spread. I mean, I was just reading about Moscow's traffic. Moscow was basically about to. Okay,
you realize you're attacking the economic heart of our country.
Yes.
Don't you know that God our God is the dollar bill?
Well, we're talking about your special solution, and you've been giving all these examples of how all these different cultural practices have brought about the problems. Well, I'm saying our culture's practice of individualism has brought great ruin on this planet and is also going to have to be smashed in order to have your special
You better
solution.
believe it. We're one of the worst examples I can think of.
What, us personally?
The United States of America. Hell yeah, us too. I'm an American, proud of it.
You should see all the devices around this house.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, all the thing. Everybody's got to have their own iPod. Families. Every person 16 and older has their own car.
Don't you think we need a bigger purpose than buying and selling, friends? Wouldn't that be something? Friends and neighbors, can you imagine life without working and spending it, earning the money and spending it? I mean, that's pretty much what life amounts to, isn't it? You know, buying the big, dream home, finding out that isn't it. The old saw, the only ones who know money can't buy happiness are the rich. None of us believe that, of course. I damn sure don't. So, I heard a statistic. You ready for this? Last night, 42% of working Americans right now have less than $10,000 in their retirement account.
Right. That's right. That's right.
What do you think's going to happen when retirement age comes around?
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody start better thinking communism. Somebody start better thinking some hardcore socialism at least, or you're going to have a revolution. Because, hey, you 1% up there, we'll come and cut your goddamn head off on your California king. We'll take a handsaw and saw your head right off at the neck. There's not enough cops to keep you safe.
But see, there's an alternate economy forming that you aren't aware of. Those people live in gated communities where they have their own police systems.
Hope they're big gates. Hope there's a big
They have, you know what?
You think the American Armed Forces, you think the Army's going to protect those pigs if it comes down to it?
They don't need it. They don't need it. You know what they have?
Blackwater.
Yes. And it's not Blackwater, but they have companies who will helicopter them out. And I learned this after Katrina. There are companies like, say, you live in Miami and you're in this top 1%. You don't have to you're not going to get on the freeway and get in the traffic jam to get out of there. You get in this helicopter that you've paid the privilege of, and you're choppered out. You don't have to worry about whether the government has a program set up to facilitate evacuations, because you're not part of it. And that's what the rich is. The rich are separating themselves off. Okay.
Let's pull it back to the special solution, because I do believe we've driven. And see, the first reflex, and when I said it, I saw it as a tyranny myself.
Right.
I thought,
that's right.
We need a world dictatorship. Resistance is crushed. I mean, I can imagine the Pakistani flag flying in radioactive, charred tatters. Pakistan, North Korea, probably Israel, fanatics have to be dealt with. That resistance will be crushed. It will not be tolerated, because we are going to save humankind. And I don't give a damn about your traditions. I don't give a damn about your property. Everything will be nationalized. It'll be your worst nightmare. However, think about this. Think about this planet, a radioactive planet. Life will still be here. Planet will still be turning around the sun for another 4,000 million years, but there will be no human life on it. Think about that. Think about that. What's worth that? You know what the United States, what our official policy is, and so's Israel, and so's France, and so's Britain, and so's China, and so's India, and so's Pakistan. Getting scared yet? That our survival will take you with us, man. We don't care. Maybe the possibilities we'll all die, okay? But we'll take you with us. We don't care whether the human race survives, as long as in this country a 200-year political experiment can make it, if you will. Patrick Henry, kiss my ass. Give me anything before death.
Because you always have hope.
You have hope.
If you're alive.
Don't you believe? If you people that say you believe in God, don't you think God's going to take care of you? Or do you really trust intercontinental ballistic missiles? Is that what your real God is? To keep you safe with your lawn flamingos and your wall-to-wall carpeting? Is that what your real God is, the material world? Are you a material girl and boy? The survival of the human race is more important than anything, and we will make the human race survive. We're going to get rid of all nuclear weapons. We're going to smash all resistance. We're going to have a unified global police force. You're going to get your ass shot to death if you set one little toe inside the Brazilian rainforest and other huge preserves that will be, people will be brought together in cities to make them maximally efficient and with less of an impact on the environment. Cars, thing of the past. Personal car, forget it. We're talking high-speed rail, light rail, public transportation, and a lot of laundromats, a lot of sharing.
No more plane God.
No more billionaires that you masturbate watching on TV while people are eating out of a dumpster. I'm a communist. You know, it took me a long time to really get that. Man, I'm a communist. Because that's the only way we're going to make it. You are my brothers and sisters. And you're either going to behave or we're going to stick a bayonet up your ass, and pull a trigger. We're just going to stab you. We're going to stab you, then shoot you. And then use you for Soylent Green. I really think it's the only way we're going to make it. And we have got to come together. And this is crunch time. People say, oh, this has always been going on. I was getting my car washed today. Hey, car wash. Talk about a polluting. I got the works too, wax. Sitting in the oil change place before that, wondering all that oil going down there. I wonder where that goes.
Oh no,
I know that.
Yeah. It's like plastics recycled. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Look, I'd be the first. I'll probably kill myself the day the world government was formed because they'll tell me to do something and I'll say no and I'll be bayoneted and shot first thing. I spent my whole life trying to avoid the collective. So funny, we idealize the lone cowboy. Mm-hmm. Who kisses this woman at the end of the movie and then rides off with his horse. You know
That's
what I'm saying?
right.
So that's it. It's horrible. It's horrible. But guess what? What's more horrible than no more humans? 4 billion years to produce a sentient, analytical creature capable of building a rocket, going to the moon, and pulling out the rover and driving around on it. And coming back alive. To have that kind of marvelous abilities. Look at all the wonderful things, the museums, the art, the music, the science, the longevity, the gifts of the human brain. And we're going to piss that away for a goddamn flag? Kiss my ass. That's crazy. That's why our second book is called We Are All Innocent by Reason of Insanity. And I express anger a lot, which is not conscious. But underneath this anger is a passion that's true, that's heartfelt. We're in trouble, and we need to wake up. Put down the malt liquor or the designer beer. And what's going on in this town anyway? Everybody looks real hip, but what's going on? What's happening? You subscribe to the New Yorker? Is that it?
Hey, I love that magazine.
Yeah.
Okay, so
when you read it, you'll know. Yeah.
We'll talk some.
Know what?
I don't know. I usually can't remember too much about the articles a month later. Okay, it's a tyranny. That was that was what I would hit up against. I would also hit up against, well, where are you going to find the people that can actually do this? Because I look around at the leaders of the world right now, and it's pretty bleak in terms of the integrity and and independence.
What?
Yeah, not being beholden. We look at our government, and is it really a democracy? Are we really, is it representing the wishes of the people, or is it representing the wishes of a very small number of elite and corporate business interests? Well, let's see. It's pretty easy to say what that is. It's not representing the people.
Best government money can buy.
And so when I think about what Arthur's talking about, and maybe it would be horrible for a period of time, but that is... To think that that's going to stay that way is underestimating the power of the human spirit. And what I also think about is the waste of humanity that is happening in the way our world is organized right now. The absolute and utter waste of those children in third world countries, the children in U.S. ghettos that are
the working poor in this country.
The people how many millions have awesome gifts that could be given to the humanity as a whole, and they are never given the opportunity because they are condemned to poverty for the rest of their entire lives.
That's right.
No education, no opportunities, nothing, because we don't see that as a priority. And so, as we've talked about how this tyranny could be structured, we've seen how it could actually have a liberal aspect to it. Arthur's said that earlier, and that's why I said I wanted to come around to this afterwards, is that you can imagine a liberal tyranny that would start building schools, that would make clean water available to everybody on the planet, that decent housing would be a priority, that these things, this is what the world government would do.
You don't get to make a buck keeping people alive. You don't get to get rich serving your fellow human beings, giving them quality health care. Pharmaceutical companies, I would make a special guillotine for you with a real dull blade that would take several drops to snap your neck. What did Marx say? Resentment is the most precious flower of poverty. That's the seed of revolution, and there's anger growing out there. Not those Tea Party people. They're angry. They don't know what for. They don't. Maybe if they realize they're slaves like everybody else, it might, have some positive benefits. I doubt it. I'm afraid it's got to come from the top down. Just an unconscious revolution by the masses is going to produce the same corruption. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what I think. I think the missing ingredient, the corruption is the word. When power changes hands, the leaders of the revolt who are newly installed in power are prone to the same corruption as the old bunch. The same ripoff comes around again, a songwriter friend of mine wrote. And what is corruption? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Lord Acton said that. What corruption is deceit. Corruption goes in the dark, greased palms in the dark, favors, quid pro quo, deals made behind smoke-filled doors, closed doors, smoke-filled rooms, all that cockroach behavior. Roaches thrive in the dark. They hate the light. So what we need is light. How do we trust each other? How do you know I'm not, well, you obviously know I'm crazy. That's obvious. But what have you ever been really betrayed, like somebody you found out was doing the dirty deed behind your back? You ever been betrayed? Someone really lied to you, really played you for a fool. It's a horrible feeling. And it kind of instills a general sense of distrust of everybody from that point on. Mm-hmm. How do we build trust? Here's my suggestion, along with the Manhattan Project of getting alternative energy source, how about an unbeatable lie detector? How about something that makes lying obsolete? There is no way you're going to beat it. No way. You can sit there and lie till the cows come home, but eventually it'll break you down and you're going to tell the truth. Now that's a machine I would like to see worked on. Mm-hmm. Because if we can make lying obsolete, we might have a chance. Because the only way the G20 is going to come, in my scenario, the way they're going to come together, but it's not going to be foolproof, it's not going to be free of corruption, is they realize that the event horizon of human destruction, self-destruction, is within sight. It's darkness visible. William Styron title about depression. They can see it coming. We got to stop. We have to pull out all the plugs. We have to come together right now and have a world police force and stop this, or we're all going to die. Period. End of story. Go over there and take that ice pick out of that idiot's hand and throw him overboard. He's done. You're done. Nobody gets an ice pick in their seat. You don't even get an assigned seat anymore. This is our life raft called Earth. There are no borders. There are no more divisions. There will be no more languages. There will be no separate customs. There will be no separate laws. Screw states' rights. The last thing we need is a bunch of rednecks in Wyoming and, Arkansas with their own shitty laws like Arizona. Up yours, says the federal court today.
Okay, well,
so all bets are off. When we're all going to die, all bets are off. You don't get nothing. Your rights are done. Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Okay, you're dead.
Okay, so let me...
Whatever floats your boat.
So this has been an interesting theory. We've pretty much expressed it.
Exhausted it.
Okay. Well, because what I wanted to do was, we've got about 10 minutes left, throw up maybe an alternate scenario. which is the human race. Because you're talking about something that this wasn't going to happen next year. I mean, the problems would get closer. I mean, global warming would become more obvious, or some really bad things would happen with nuclear weapons. Say terrorists blow up a couple cities, and we get to that point, and and that would propel this. Well, how about as an alternate scenario? Say another 20 years go by, and instead of this world government, these same things are happening. The problems are getting really severe. But at the same time, the consciousness of the human race goes through a shift. And I am not talking about 2012 here. Hey, look, I just said alternate scenario. I didn't say you had to buy it. I just said think about it.
Pardon my cynicism.
Open your mind slightly to allow it to come through. And I have argued this, and I think I've said it on a show before, that just YouTube alone, not counting the whole internet, YouTube alone, I think, is an amazing force for globalizing people's awareness. That people see somebody in Iran playing with their cat the same way they play with their cat, and they realize that Iranian is a human being just like me. And this is one of the reasons I think all children should travel to another country when they're a teenager to learn this, that everyone is a human being just like us. The divisions are arbitrary and truly meaningless. So what the internet is allowing, and television is allowing I think could bring about a shift in awareness, a shift in consciousness on a global level, that and not everybody, but a sufficient number of people would shift their thinking into a global viewpoint, and more than a global viewpoint, into understanding that we are all in this together, that we have to put aside our individual interests. Because when you talked about corruption, and you were saying, what is corruption? Well, what I thought of it was, look at a hunter-gatherer tribe, say a tribe that you see in the Amazon or in the Kalahari Desert. I think of the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy when they showed that tribe. I think that was a fairly accurate depiction of what their tribal customs were, and there was no private property. That the whole movie was based on that these people had no concept of private property. Everything was shared, and there was no corruption because there was no greed. Everything was held in common. They were one people. They were one family that swum or sank together. And I would say the problem with our world today is that as we increased in numbers, went around the globe, and began to live in cities, the sheer number of people increased to the size that we couldn't wrap our minds around it, that we were connected to all those people, that my well-being rested on the well-being of the person across town. So that led to us being grasping, self-serving, getting all I can for myself, and without thinking that if I take from that person, that's hurting myself.
It occurs to me that our masters encourage that kind of thinking.
That's right. So
not binding together in unions.
Right.
Ooh.
That's right. So we, as our societies grew in complexity, grew in numbers, we more and more lost the sense of togetherness, lost the sense of community, and how we all were very incredibly interconnected, and our well-beings rested on each other's. And so we got to this point where all I care about is how I do, my retirement account, my bank account. My literal brother and sister, well, maybe I could see my way to help them out a little bit.
What?
Right. But even that is questionable. God bless the child that's got his own.
Yep.
And so and that's the root of it, is this fragmentation into incredible atomized individuals.
Because what is the vision?
Okay, so what I'm saying, right? So what I'm saying is,
that it?
I can see the possibility of a shift happening here. because you see signs of it, of people starting to see things from a global point of view. That we've just been seeing some documentaries on the space program. How short a time ago was it that we even saw the photos from space of our fragile planet? Yeah. That maybe was the beginning of like, oh my God, we are spaceship Earth. We are.
Have you seen? Have you ever been in the third? Have you been in the third world? Have you been in like?
Well, I've been to Mexico.
Mexico,
and I've
there
been
you
to
go.
Nicaragua.
Yeah. Try Afghanistan. I've been there.
I understand.
Try Nepal. Try India. A lot of India with all their technical.
Right.
Welcome to Dell Technical Support. My name is Gary.
Get out into the country. I think you mean away from the cities.
Damn right. There are so many people who are living like people were living 1,000 years ago.
I didn't say everybody.
I'm saying the clock is ticking. The doomsday clock is a couple of minutes to midnight. I don't think the atomic scientists set that number arbitrarily. We are in trouble. Something radical needs to happen. I don't know how. Trust is needed, like a shot in the ass. Maybe the G20, somebody should sneak pure LSD into their water supply at one of their meetings.
That's a good idea.
You know what? They'd freak out and kill each other. They're so riddled with suspicion and self-interest. Acid would do nothing, but acid couldn't even help those people. No, we need something like a foolproof lie detector so that people will know when you're bullshitting them and it's not working at all. So try again. Come on, tell me the truth.
But I lie to myself all the time.
All right, so look in a mirror with a machine strapped on, and realize, hey, give me a break, Arthur.
But what I mean is I'm not even conscious of my lies.
That's right. This is all about awakening conscious, seeing the game of God.
Right.
GameofGod.com, about the fact that this whole circus act is God and amnesia. It's the only way the unlimited can experience limitation is to forget that it's unlimited. That's what the universe is. And so this is wake-up time, but it's also self-extinction time. There's that for any Matrix fans, there are only two movies. First Matrix was brilliant. Second Matrix, the best thing about it was the fact that Neo realized he'd been here 6 times before. There's a deliberate anomaly built into the computer-generated dream that would work and work and work until there was a whole revolutionary city underground with rebels and everything. The machines were fighting. And then the chosen one, Neo, would show up at the architect's door and open it. But every time he went for the puss, every time he...
And guess what? What's the problem? Chosen one. The one. And just like in Avatar, what's the problem? It's the one leading the many. We can't do that anymore. We need
drop the Messiah nonsense.
That's right, please.
One of my songs says, Jesus is talking. The last verse goes, "Don't look for clouds of angels when I return again. You see, I've never left you. I've always been within. I'm who you really are. But you got to get your ego out of the way so I can come out." That's what it is. Jesus Christ is inside you. God is inside you.
Well, we've done a pretty good job ranting through another hour.
Let's close with a word of prayer. Lord, we have heard the angel of death hovering above us, and Mr. President, the Prime Minister at Kissoff is back on the phone, and he's hopping mad. So they found out one bomber got through. Yeehaw! Yeehaw!
Arthur plays this game with me all the time. He'll quote a line from a movie or a book, and then he'll see how long it takes me to figure out what he's referring to. So that's one of our amusements.
So special solution, remember that. What's living behind barbed wire with a cattle prod up your butt is, to me, far superior than a dead planet with no more human life on it. The truth will out. I'll quote Jesus. Jesus said, "The light shines."
Half a second, half a minute.
Not as long as you keep telling it. Jesus said, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And it never will, because the truth is the light, and the darkness is always a lie. The lie is always a lie. The truth will out. If we're alive, the truth has a chance. If we're all dead, forget it."
And that's why, people that say it was the good war. If Hitler had won, that light would still have been there and would have overcome even Hitler.
All right.
All right. Thank you for. Hopefully, we'll keep going.
Farewell.
Having this conversation.
Farewell.